Mike on Strike. Written by Karen Moakler. Illustrated by Nicholas Jackson. Focus question. Was Mike's strike successful? Why or why not? Mike McCarthy was a curious guy. So curious that he wanted to buy his friend Derek's super spy kit in order to find out people's secrets. To buy the kit, though, Mike needed $25 he didn't have. I get $8 a week allowance, Derek said. At that rate, you'd just need 3 allowances, more or less, to pay me. $8, Mike repeated. What do you have to do to get that? Derek sucked the salt from a peanut shell and shook his head. Nothing, he said. But I know how families like yours work, with chores and stuff. He shrugged. How many of your allowances would it take? 10, Mike said grimly. Derek shook his head. Negotiate a raise, he said. I tried negotiation last month with the Tooth Fairy, Mike said. She was one tough customer. Derek shook his head again. Forget fairies, he said. Parents are softies by comparison. You just need to show them what you bring to the table. Table? Mike asked. Math Minute. Mike says it would take him 10 allowances to raise the money for Derek's spy kit. How much is his allowance now? If his allowance doubled, how many allowances would he need in order to buy Derek's spy kit? Answer 1, $2.50. Answer 2, 5. The bargaining table, Derek explained. Set up for a potluck. Then think what would happen if nobody brought food. Everyone would go hungry, Mike said. Sure, Derek said, but whoever hosted the next party would hire a caterer instead, so nobody would have to cook. Just what was Derek driving at? Mike had no idea. Is their food good? Mike asked. Catered food is always better than homemade, Derek said. But that's beside the point. Mike wondered if that could be true. His mom was a pretty good cook, and his dad's French toast was a slice of heaven. Look, Derek continued, the potluck, the caterer, the food, that's all just a metaphor. The point is that when you come to the bargaining table, you need to bring something to bargain with. I got nothing, Mike said. Well, hold on. I make good lemonade. Derek groaned in frustration. Forget the food thing. Do you do any chores? He asked. Mike nodded. Derek was the only third grader in their class with his own smartphone. He grabbed it. "Talk to me," he said. "We'll make a list. The chores you do are what you leverage, what you use to bargain." "Okay," Mike said. "I take out the recycling. I make my bed. I clear the dinner table." Derek tapped away on his phone. Without looking up, he inquired, "Any seasonal chores?" Yeah," Mike said. "I rake leaves and shovel snow." "Mow the lawn?" Derek asked. "Not yet," Mike said, "but I weed the vegetable garden." "Pet care?" Derek asked. "I feed pickles sometimes," Mike said, "if my mom tells me to." Derek tapped some more, then looked up. "Excellent," he pronounced. "So this is what you bring to the table, see? If your parents had to pay somebody else to do all this, it'd cost them more than what they pay you. This is why they passed child labor laws, to protect kids like you from being exploited." "I didn't know that," Mike murmured. "Sure," Derek said. "Your parents are taking advantage of you big time." "Oh," Mike said. He felt himself getting depressed. "Stay with me here," Derek said, "because this is all going to change really soon. You've got this list of things you do for them, and now you're going to take it to them. You're going to make your demands very clear, and if your parents refuse to meet your demands, you're going to go on strike." Strike. A strike is a form of protest in which workers refuse to work. Their goal is to force employers to meet their demands, usually better working conditions, higher pay, or fewer hours. Strikes can be effective if other workers can't or won't step in to do the job. History is full of famous strikes that changed a country and sometimes the world. Railroad, mine, steel, and postal workers have held some of the most famous strikes in modern history. "I am?" Mike asked. "You don't have a choice," Derek said. "You don't want to be oppressed, do you?" "I don't know," Mike said. He didn't know what oppressed meant. He just knew he felt depressed. Derek spent the next several days coaching Mike. By the weekend, Mike felt prepped and ready to take on his parents. "Parents," he began after Saturday breakfast, "we need to talk." Slowly, warily, his parents' faces emerged from behind two sections of the newspaper. "We're listening," said Mr. McCarthy. "I bring a lot of value to this family," Mike said. "We agree," his dad said. "Wait," Mike said. "Don't you want to hear what my value is?" "We know your value," Mrs. McCarthy said. "We love you, honey." Mike thrust his warm feelings aside. "The point is," he persevered, "you should raise my allowance." He pushed a list of his chores across the table to them. "Let's negotiate," he said. "I'd like—no, I demand $8 a week." "Stop right there, Buster," said his mom. "Nobody in this family makes demands." "They do if they're oppressed," Mike said. Mrs. McCarthy snorted. Mr. McCarthy raised a hand to cover his grin. "If my demands are not met," Mike said, "I'll go on strike." "You can do that," his dad said, "but you realize that while you strike, you won't get paid." Mike swallowed. "So it goes," he said, and so it went. For the next 2 weeks, Mike did no chores at all. When it was time to clear the dishes off the table, he cleared out of the room. When it was time to take out the recycling, he took a hike. At first, he was amazed to get away with it. By the 3rd week, though, Mike began to notice something disturbing. He was spending less time with his family and, consequently, missing out on stuff. He heard the clink of silverware when his little sister, Aster, helped his mom load up the dishwasher. He heard them laughing. What was so funny? If he had the spy kit, he would know. Then again, if he were helping with chores, he would know. He wouldn't have to spy. "You know," Mike said during the 4th week, "I'm ready to start my chores again if you're ready to raise my allowance." His parents looked at each other. "Nope," his dad said. "We're good." The following Saturday, Mike woke to a special muffled hush. The singular silence of snow. The world outside his window was transformed into a sparkling wonderland. The driveway and the walks were buried, but his dad was already outside, clearing the front porch to locate the newspaper. Normally, Mike would rise now and pull on his boots to help. Instead, he watched his mom and Aster emerge in hats and mittens. Aster was wielding Mike's shovel. All of them were working and laughing together. Laughing again. Why were they laughing this time? They started throwing snowballs. Mike watched, his head on his hand, and realized he was lonely. At that moment, he wanted nothing more than to feel like part of his family again. But then he realized something else. Sometimes, to feel like part of something, you have to do your part. Mike walked downstairs. He put on his boots and scarf, his hat and coat, his gloves. He walked outside and gently took the shovel from his sister. He worked on the sidewalk for a solid 20 minutes before anybody said a word to him. Returning to the house, though, his dad patted his shoulder. "Welcome back, buddy," he said. Mike didn't get a raise that particular Saturday. He did, however, get a heavenly French toast breakfast and all the laughs that no allowance could buy. Connections. Writing. Do you think Mike's parents should give him a raise? Why or why not? Write an essay explaining your answer. Use details from the text as support. Social studies. Research famous strikes in history. Choose one and write a report about the strike, answering who, what, where, when, and why.